Well, that was Lorna Gordon. Let's speak live to Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley, a former US diplomat and distinguished fellow at the Atlantic Council's Rafiq Hariri Centre and the Middle East programmes. Thank you so much for being here on our programme. How dangerous is the crossroads we're about to hit with this deadline only a few hours away?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It is indeed a dangerous crossroad. We know that the president speaks with hyperbole, with brutal, aggressive language, but we know he's also backed off of four separate ultimatums during the last 6 weeks of this war. So it is up in the air as to which direction he's going to go. What I would say, however, is that the U.S. military knows the law, knows that they do have a responsibility not to carry out crimes against the law of armed conflict or international humanitarian law, etc. So if indeed the strikes are increased, and they've already begun, we can be certain that the U.S. military will have given a range of targets that meet the requirements under the law of armed conflict so that they have a heavy military use as well as civilian
You're
use.
Absolutely sure of that statement, are you, given what President Trump has said very clearly in the various social media posts over the weekend about what he plans to target, and also the clear out we've seen of top generals at the Pentagon in only the last few days?
Indeed. Well, it is certainly troubling, to say the least, but I am confident that the culture of the U.S. military has not changed wholeheartedly in the last 18 months of President Trump's campaign and presidency. Laws still prevail. We've seen it on domestic issues as well as military issues. We haven't seen any steps that would clearly be against the law of armed conflict so far. And of course, the military is trained to put forward the planning that is required under U.S. Yeah.
Let me ask you about that. Just the one line that the White House has just issued in the last, 20 minutes, half an hour, denying it's considering using nuclear weapons. The very fact that they're having to put out a statement like that, what do you make of it? Perhaps not maybe the US using nuclear weapons, but always in the background there has been the possibility of Israel, who of course don't acknowledge that they have a nuclear weapon, potentially also considering it. What do you make of the very fact that they're engaging with that question?
Well, I think it goes back to how this war began and why. And we recall that the Secretary of State said, we got into this war because the Israelis were about to start it, and we wanted to preempt because we felt we would be a target from Iran once the war began. Israel is well satisfied with how this war is going. Certainly their aims and their comfortableness with a chaotic, broken up Iran is far greater than the United States, because the United States has international responsibilities that the Israelis do not. So the fact that this even comes up is deeply distressing for Americans. But of course, again, we're in it with our allies, the Israelis, and this war, from their perspective, is going just fine. It is not for our Arab allies, and it is not for the United States.
Just an additional point around nuclear weapons, because Israel absolutely committed and clear that they want an end to this regime. If they saw potentially that there was some sort of scenario where that was not going to happen, do you rule out entirely in your mind them making a consideration about potentially using a nuclear device?
I do. Number one, the winds blow in all different directions, and the fallout. Iran is close for using nuclear weapons. So I don't believe they would be so unwise as to try and use one. And of course, the international opprobrium for any country, whether it's the United States or Israel, using a nuclear weapon when there were negotiations, when the person who was most against going toward a nuclear weapon in Iran was killed by the United States and Israel. The opprobrium internationally, I think, would be too heavy for either
Yes.
nation. I'm confident.
A final thought then, as we get close to this deadline, if the president chooses to escalate militarily, we don't know how, but significantly, just make a final assessment of the risks of again moving up that escalation ladder.
It will show a continued lack of understanding of the Iranian response. They've been very clear. If they go to the Stone Ages, they are not going alone. The Gulf is in deep danger, and they know it.
Well, there we have to leave it. But Jean Abercrombie-Winstanley, thank you so much for joining us on today's programme. Great to talk to you. Thanks for that analysis.